In 2018, we started to declutter our home and went on to let go of 50% of our belongings. And I now make a living by helping our clients declutter and organize their homes. Over the course of our journey, I've learned powerful lessons about managing the physical items in our lives. Today, I'm sharing 5 lessons to save you time and stress and help motivate you to create the clutter-free and peaceful home that you deserve. When I started organizing for clients, I just assumed everyone would be young families with young children. The chaos of toys and busyness and Nerf guns and pack schedules. And those are a ton of our clients. However, the other half of our clients are people on the other end of the spectrum, over 60 and looking to downsize, or just considering starting to downsize, or getting used to living without kids around, or getting used to living solo again. And everyone has their own unique situation. However, one thing that most people come to realize, especially our clients who are in that second phase of life, is that 99.9% of situations, decluttering has to be done. Even if we are fairly minimal, or our house isn't that big, or we hate doing it and we really don't want to. My advice, number 1, is the decluttering has to be done. We have to do it eventually. Even if we hate it, we can ignore it for a pretty long time, but not forever. And this might seem like the most lame, obvious piece of advice you've ever heard, but I think in so many situations in life, we as humans are like, yeah, we know we have to do that. But deep down, we are subconsciously trying to figure out a way how we don't have to do it. And since there is no avoiding decluttering, most people who realize this realize it's worth putting in some effort and focus towards it. And there's a few things that make this lesson a little easier to swallow. First of all, start now, wherever you're at. However old you are, however many kids you have not living at home. It doesn't have to be perfect, and even if it feels like you're stumbling through, that's normal. Just keep going, or hire someone, or ask your organized cousin for help, because it has to be done. Stop wasting time trying to figure out a way to not have to do it. And the good part is that, like most things in life, the anticipation is way worse than just getting the act done. Next up is one of the reasons that we avoid decluttering, sometimes for a really long time. At the beginning of projects, especially big projects, there can be some pretty intense emotions. We've had clients cry. We've had them talk to us like we were crazy or annoying or dumb. We've had them have to leave halfway through the day just for an escape. We've had clients want to finish early or take days off. Whether it's the start of their own home or their parents' home or a family member's home, the emotions can be intense. And because in a lot of situations, decluttering is not something that people have done kind of throughout their lives. So sometimes these intense emotions can be very shocking. But we've become so used to these intense reactions because you see time and time again that once you get past those initial stages and the kind of that bumpy middle, things get way easier. Lesson number 2 is that decluttering can be delicate, and that's okay. Like any intense emotional challenge, the only way to get over it is to face it. You can't go around it, you gotta go through it. If you are starting out or you're partway through your journey and you feel sort of stuck, my main advice is just to keep going. It's okay if you need to take breaks or get help or try a new strategy, but just keep going, because we've watched countless people go from absolutely hating our guts to hugging us in relief and gratitude because of how good it feels once it's done. So yes, it's delicate and it's okay. If this topic brings up intense emotions, and just hearing me say that makes you want to punch the screen, don't be surprised and don't be mad at yourself. That is normal, and I promise you that if you keep going, things will get much lighter very soon. Next up is probably the advice that I give most often. In general, I love my job. I love organizing, I love decluttering, I love sharing about it. However, it is a job, and like most jobs, there are parts that are harder than others. And one part that I often tend to put off is creating like the outlines or plans and kind of sort of scripts for these videos. Every single time I find it intimidating and stressful because I worry, what will people think? Or I'll worry, what if I spend 10 hours on this and not a single person watches it? And I build it up in my head to be this massive ordeal, and that in order to create the perfect video, I need 5 hours of uninterrupted time with the perfect chair and the perfect desk and the perfect pen. And then every month I go through the same realization that so much of my best work is done in that 30-minute slot early in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee, or I come up with some of my most creative ideas when I'm watching a movie with the kids. And I find this exact same thing happens in people's minds about decluttering. And we make it into this huge ordeal that we need to spend, our entire weekend in the basement categorizing old photos. Or we need to get it all done in 1 month. Or our closet needs to be perfect all of the time. But just like me writing and creating in small pockets of time, decluttering a bit at a time consistently usually creates amazing results, reduces the overwhelm, and builds momentum. My third piece of advice is just to make decluttering part of everyday life. And one of the ways to make it part of everyday life is to make it part of everyday conversations. Whether you're discussing it with the family members that you live with or just with friends over coffee, decluttering a lot of the time is something that people aren't taught from a young age. So it sort of becomes this almost like taboo topic, either because you're not comfortable with it or because it's become such a heavy weight that it feels like this elephant in the room. But by getting in the habit of just chatting about it lightly and even taking that one step further and asking specific questions can help so much. Not just like, hey, can you go clean out your closet? But hey, do you care about this Guns N' Roses t-shirt anymore? And this strategy works on ourselves as well. Instead of thinking, oh, look at all these toys, I'm never gonna be able to deal with this, you think, okay, you just pick up one item, this Elmo. Does anyone play with this Elmo anymore, yes or no? By making these conversations light and routine, it really does help build us and move us forward. And eventually this topic just becomes easy. The next piece of advice has been on my mind a lot lately, and I think it can really help us when we're making our decluttering decisions. My mom comes from a family of 11 siblings, and she has one sister in particular that she's very close with who's quite a bit older than my mom. So when they were younger, my aunt would look out for my mom, and now that my aunt is in her 90s, my mom looks out for her. A few years back, when she was still living in her own home, my mom started to spend more time there to help and support her. And my mom almost went crazy with the amount of stuff that she had in that house. My aunt is very organized, but according to my mom, she was a total pack rat. She loved having her dining room table just filled with tons of little tiny piles and things she was working on. Every time I would go over, she'd say, oh, hey, Marianne, I have something for you. And she'd pull out 3 coupons from my favorite store, and she would pull out a photo that she got printed of us together. And then she would pull out a scarf that she had laying around that she thought would be perfect for me. But to my mom, this was a total nightmare. And that was because when it came to the amount of physical items that they felt the most comfortable with, or what I call our tipping point, was very, very different. In this case, my mom's tipping point was way lower than my aunt's. On the other end of the spectrum, I will show tours of her house or little tidbits, and I'll always get comments like, oh, it's too bland, too blank, too boring, you need plants, you need more artwork. And I can see how some people could think that. But in my phase of life, where we have young kids and I have tons of ongoing projects and tidbits and busyness, I just crave simple spaces. And I know that anything beyond what we currently have will push me way over and outside of my tipping point. So advice number 4 is to find your tipping point. And in my opinion, the only way to do this is through practice, experience, and time. If the amount of stuff in your home currently is bothering you, then you're probably beyond your tipping point. Or specifically, if there's a room in your house that you just can't stand and you avoid going in, that room is probably beyond your tipping point. On the other hand, if you have a room in your house that you love going in and it's peaceful and you can function really well in there and you just feel happy, that probably has a perfect amount of physical items for you. The major benefit of finding this tipping point is that you can start to learn how much you can manage and recognizing the points of time where you need to purge or lighten the load. And this makes the decision making easier because you just know it has to be done. My last piece of advice for today is next, and I want it to pump you up and motivate you. One of the other things that I didn't expect when I started working with clients is that every single person is going through some sort of transformation. Sometimes it's having kids or becoming empty nesters. Sometimes it's moving house or renovating the house or losing a partner or losing a child. And sometimes it's a transformation that started 5 weeks ago, or sometimes it's a transformation that started 5 years ago. But that transformation has sparked some sort of craving for simplicity. And one of the things I've learned that if you are ready for that next phase of life, that next chapter that's way less about what you own and more about that feeling free and more at peace and more focused on serving others or just resting, then it is not too late. Very often the items and spaces we work in are full of items that were years old and have been piling up over a very, very long time. It doesn't matter when the clutter started, there is still time to let it go. My last piece of advice for today is just to remember it's not too late. If you are still here and breathing and living, it's not too late to have that peaceful and functional home that you crave. Even if we only have 2 years left on this earth, imagine the freedom of letting go of all the physical items weighing you down and spending the last bit of your life as a celebration of the parts of life that truly matter the most. My advice is that whether you feel like your house has gotten away from you, or your space will never feel peaceful again, or you feel like you've just always been like the disorganized, cluttered person, do it anyway. Forget about the shame and the guilt and the frustration and just do it. You will not regret it. And I strongly believe that the best parts of our lives are the parts when we are not being weighed down by the clutter and disorganization, and we have that energy and the capacity to do the things that we care about the most. If you are looking for more inspiration and motivation to get started today, I have the perfect video for you, and I will link that right here. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.